Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Pabs, rising VTuber and an artist, and today we need to start by actually launching Clip Studio Paint. It feels weird. Why is there? Hang on, is there? Can everybody see that? What is? That's my chair back there. What? Hang on. No, that's not it. What? Hang on. Something funny's happening here. Okay, that's that. Where is... You see that, right? Like, I'm not crazy. Like, you can see that on the far right edge of the screen where it's just the back of my chair again. Where? Ah, mira tú. There we go. I guess when Tool was messing around with my computer those a couple weeks ago, they must have forgotten to switch off a couple of the sources, or, you know, some of them transformed unexpectedly. Well, that's fine. I'm glad the ad wasn't too much of a mess to clean up, though. For a minute, I was worried they'd actually change my passwords or anything, but they were surprisingly lenient. Just had to switch back my icon and my bio. Rightio. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna draw 3 different characters. So let's just put these 3 squares here where they can really stink up the room. That's too big. That is far too big. We're not gonna be able to fit all 3. Let's just use a little bit of movie magic to get those back in order. Actually, it's bothering me. The lines are a little thin. Just the tiniest bit too thin. Come on, buddy. I believe in you. I know you can do this. Okay, adjust line width. Here we go. Okay, yeah, those are slightly more visible. Maybe just one more. Just one more after that. I do like the ad for these brushes where they are the same size on your screen no matter how far away or far in you're zoomed in. I can just zoom out entirely to just cover the canvas. It's very convenient. They have their downsides, but it's fine. Right then. So, if you've never been to one of these before, and actually maybe I could just type it up on the top right here. Top left? Top right. No, top right feels like it would be more natural. So today we're going to be drawing some mobsters. Or, you know, caricatures of mobsters to some extent. Hi, Raph. Slash... This is exciting. I've never had to time anybody out. How much is... Okay, so 60 seconds is 1 minute. So let's go with 300. Hey! That was pretty easy. Hi, buddy. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. How's your hand cam setup going? Have you thought it out anymore? Okay, it's bothering me that this square has melted into this other one, so I'm gonna try and separate them. Just a little bit. I'm on the wrong layer. That's why it's not moving. There we go. Think of an idea how to set up. Lovely. I'm glad to hear it. Okay. So the way that I normally do these is that I launch my browser source, tried it out, but got spooked by camera needing all access for all apps. That does sound pretty spooky. All right, here we go. All right, so if you've never seen these design streams before, I use this dice roller to determine what kind of thing the character is going to be themed after. And it's a lot of fun because sometimes these have animals or creatures or careers I've never heard of in my life. God. It is really spooky when something just asks you for like way more permission than what you know what to do with, though. Because like sometimes it'll be like I remember the other day, I was opening up my video editing software and I got a pop-up from my computer being like, do you want Vegas to access Wi-Fi from private locations? And I'm like, I guess. I don't see why not. It was very scary. Okay, let's roll the sucker. Okay, so number 3, that is jobs. Okay, so where's my job wheel? Wait, what advertisement was that? Amazon fashion deals. Let's just scroll down a little bit. Jobs, here we go. This is going to be exciting because they already have a job in the themes that I'm going for. So let's... No, please not circus clown. Son of a bitch! Are you serious? Circus clown? Mobster circus clown. Okay. That's... okay. I feel like that's already a thing. I swear to God I've seen that before. That's definitely a thing. That's definitely been a bit in The Simpsons or something at some point. Alright, so we got our first one. Circus clown. I guess we'll see how that pans out. Alright, second one up. Clown mobsters? Well, I'm going for individual themes on this one, so all 3 of them are going to be in the same gang, but they're each going to have a distinct thing for them. Although I guess they could all just be clown mobsters. I don't know. Maybe one of them is just the clowniest out of all 3. You know, like the you're clown, like you are clown? I don't... Was that the phrase? Whatever. Roll the dice. The definitive clown. The clown that all other clowns measure themselves up against. That meme of the 3 dragon heads and one's just silly. God, wait, that would be an odd... Wait, hang on. That gives me a great idea for their nickname. Hang on. We're gonna call the clown one Funny Business. And I do think it'd be funny if they were a little bit silly, but they were also just completely stone-faced. We'll figure out more of the personality traits as we go along. Alright, 4 is a reroll. Let's try that again. A 1. That is mythical creatures. I don't need to subscribe to your notifications. Why do I need notifications for a wheel? See, this is the exact same shit that I'm talking about. I mean, I guess I'm glad they're asking me permission to bother me with this. The answer is no, but like... Notifications for a wheel website? Can you please be for real? Alright, what do we got? Ket's Cole. Is that how you... You know what? I've never actually looked up the pronunciation of this one. The wheel has ads it wants you to see. God. Okay, let me go see how you actually pronounce this, and then then I'll actually, like, vocalize it. Because I remember the TL sound had a specific... Hang on, Wiktionary. Here we go. Quetzalcoatl. 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 You know what? I think that makes sense. Quetzalcoatl. Or maybe it's Qual. Oh wait, hang on. Wait, pronunciation guide. Wait. This is perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Come on. Wait. Let me bump that up. All right, hit me with it.
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl. Okay. Quetzalcoatl. Let's hear that one more time.
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl. Okay. Glad we got that out of the way. All right. Back to work. Quetzalcoatl. Okay. Aztec name for the feathered serpent deity of ancient Mesoamerica, one of the main gods of many Mexican and Northern Central American civilizations. Okay. Last one. What do we got? Another one. Okay, so another job. All right, this will be exciting. What else do we got? Prison worker. Like they're in prison, or that was actually kind of vague. You know what? Maybe this is the guy that just came out of prison. Maybe this is the one that like still has like the like ball and chain and like has the striped clothing. Okay. So this is a fun lineup. We've got two completely normal things and also the Mesoamerican serpent god. I actually don't know much about Quetzalcoatl. Well, I don't know, Raph. I've never been married, so I wouldn't be able to say accurately if it's a ball. If you know, being in union with the person you love the most out of anyone in the whole world would be a ball and chain. I think that's more of a reflection of you, buddy. I think that's already a dude from Street Fighter, actually. Just like that New Yorker guy who fights with a ball around his ankle or something. Okay, among the Aztecs, he was related to wind, Venus, sun, merchants, art, crafts, knowledge, and learning. Oh, cool. He was also patron god of the Aztec priesthood. He is also a god of wisdom, learning, and intelligence. Seen Dojins of Quetzalcoatl? Oh yeah, they did have that in Fate Grand Order, didn't they? She is cool. I like that they made her really into pro wrestling. Weird that they made her white and also blonde. But that's a recurring theme with Fate. You could say that about a lot of the, the historical figures that they feature. The two other gods represented by the planet Venus are Tlaloc, ally of the god of rain, and Xolotl, Psychopomp and its twin. I was thinking of the girl from Dragon Maid anime. Okay, well, I've never seen Dragon Maid, which explains our disconnect. You know what? I think that, I don't know if this is a hot take or anything. I think Dragon Maid had a nice art style. I am kind of glad that I'm no longer seeing it around. I think it's a trend that happens sometimes when like a seasonal anime gets a little too big for its britches in terms of just influence in the greater weeb zeitgeist, and it becomes kind of an inescapable black hole. This happened that one time with that anime about the girl who had like a green bear, or not green, orange bear hoodie thing that she turned into like a really funny looking thing, gremlin looking thing, whenever she was at home. I have a friend who I was in an anime club with in middle school that I saw his Steam profile, and he had that girl as his icon for like a solid 10 years. Shit's crazy. I think it's probably just because he didn't bother changing it, but it's... I have no idea how else to put it. It's longevity. Like some seasonal anime just have unnatural lifespans. Unnatural vitality. Quetzalcoatl wears around his neck the breastplate Ehekako Zal, the sparely voluted wind jewel. This talisman was a conch shell cut at the cross-section and was likely worn as a necklace by religious rulers, as such objects have been discovered in burials and archaeological sites throughout Mesoamerica. That girl was the LeBron of PFPs for racist anime watchers on Twitter? Christ! No, that tracks though. Like I feel that is I wasn't gonna like explicitly mention it, but that there is a very large overlap between those that have like the unnatural vitality and dudes who just believe in phrenology full send. It's kind of it's very frightening. It's a concerning trend. Okay. Symbolize patterns witnessed in hurricanes, dust devils, seashells, and whirlpools. Okay, so these guys were big into spirals. All right, I feel like I'm understanding it now. Conch shell cut at the cross section. Okay, we have things. This is good though. It helps. Kodak's drawings pictures both Quetzalcoatl and Xol wearing an eje kakosal around the neck. I do apologize in advance to the Nahuatl language. Wait, that's Rav and Jupiter going for the exact same bit in for the spirals is beautiful. That's incredible. You know what? I do think that Uzumaki would have been a very different beat if it had taken place in Mesoamerica. One major cache of offerings includes knives and idols adorned with the symbols of more than one god, some of which were adorned with jewels. Animals thought to represent Quetzalcoatl include resplendent quetzals. Ooh, that's a pretty bird. Rattlesnakes. Okay. Crows and macaws. Are those birds? Yeah, sure are. No, hang on. What's that scientific name? Arauna. Okay, I gotta know where that name came from. Who named that? 6 are classified as macaws. Ara Anodorhynchus. Okay, hang on. Taxonomy first was erected by the French naturalist Bernard Hermain de Lacépède in 1799. Designated as the scarlet macaw by Roger Ridgway, the genus name is from Ara, meaning macaw in the Tupi language of Brazil. Okay. Shigo Quetzal macaw. Okay, that's pretty good. You know what? I'm gonna give that one a thumbs up. That was pretty good. Waking up in 15 years when somehow there's a new Uzumaki anime titled Aztec Uzumaki, and also coincidentally the GICU, Junji Ito Cinematic Universe, launches after various anime adaptation attempts. I feel like this is going to be a controversial thing to say. I think live action Junji Ito might be a good move. I understand that the art style of Junji Ito is irreplicable, and the one time we had like a nice looking episode of Uzumaki, from what I heard, the rest of the episodes of that season just completely dropped the ball. They can do it to Batman, and they have live action Uzumaki. They probably do have that. I knew that Raph would say that, by the way. That's a very predictable. I was waiting for somebody to drop that. I'm glad that you picked it up. I'm glad that you went for that. The word is an automatopoeia based on the sound of their call. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, tell me about the Araruna. The blue and yellow macaw. Okay. Taxonomy. Formally described by the Swedish naturalist Carl Linnaeus. Oh, Linnaeus mentioned. Let's go. In the 10th edition of his Systema Naturae. He placed it with all the other parrots in the genus Psittacus and coined a binomial name Psittacus ararauna. There was a Uzumaki live-action film in 2000. Word up. Hang on. Since 2001, Wikipedia has become the backbone of knowledge on the internet. No time for that, Wikipedia. Okay, wait, hang on. The specific epithet ararauna comes from the Tupi ararauna, meaning big dark parrot, for the hyacinth macaw. So it's not even this actually. She's not. This bird ain't even the same thing. Wait. This is a whole different bird. Kind of fetching though. I like this one. I don't know, something about like the oval shapedness of its head is very pleasing in this picture, very dynamic. Hang on. Uzumaki 2000. Wiki Spiral begins. That's right. All right, talk to me about the live action film. Here we go. Ooh, I like the poster. Okay. Talk to me about the reception. The film has an approval rating of 61%, not looking good. Site's critic consensus reads, Uzumaki uses its creepy, David Lynch-inspired atmospherics to effectively build a sense of dread, but ultimately fails to do anything with it! Oh no. Elvis Mitchell noted that the way the film develops mood, finding it part of the cycle of Japanese films like Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure and Hideko Nakata's Ring as a vivid, state-of-the-art scare films that move so swiftly that psychological underpinnings are a luxury. That's a very fancy way of saying you didn't get what was going on. Things get really weird, though not particularly scary, and it was ultimately disappointing. That's a shame. Intriguing if ultimately unsatisfying. Okay. The Oregonian described the film as beautiful, cold, oddly colorful, and just plain otherworldly. Many creatively terrifying and effectively gross sequences that stand on their own beautifully, but it doesn't flow into a consistent build of terror. Listicle entitled Top 10 Violent Live Action Manga Adaptations to Watch for Valentine's Day. Number 1, the Diamond is Unbreakable live action adaptation. Okay. Resplendent Quetzal. Okay. Males have iridescent green plumes, a red lower breast and belly, black inner wings, and a white undertail, while females are duller and have a shorter tail. Okay. Oh, yeah, you can see that. Yeah. Watch an old boy with your girl. Okay, there's a lot of movies that I think... You know what? Is Old Boy a date night movie? I feel like maybe not. I feel like it's gonna be a weird vibe if Old Boy is your date night movie. But I'm not saying it's a bad idea necessarily. You know what? You know, after you learn about what's happening in Old Boy, I think you can just fondly reminisce upon the whatchamacallit, the hallway sequence, and I think that's gonna be the end of movie night for that day. Okay. I think I've got an idea for how to handle Quetzalcoatl now. Let's jump right in. And I'll probably do Quetzalcoatl first, just because that's the one that I have the clearest idea for. So first of all, we're gonna use two things. First of all, a spiral motif, because I like the idea of having the bisected conch shell as like a thing for them. Second of all, maybe kind of leaning upon the bird thing as well. The bird thing and the snake thing, perhaps in equal measure. So, you know, since the quetzal looks like it's... How big is the quetzal, the bird? The resplendent quetzal is the largest trogon. Trogon? It is 36 to 40 centimeters long. Okay, 30... So it's a... Okay, wait, is that... Okay, 36 centimeters long with the tail or with no tail? The median being... The tail streamers measure between 31 and 100 centimeters, the median being 45 for males. Okay, so this thing is actually pretty big. Yeah, but no, like... 30 to 40... 36 to 46 centimeters. That's like more like... That's like a little more than 1.5 the distance between your thumb and your pinky. So it's like a fairly sizable bird. It's not a small bird. It's like pigeon-sized. I'm like trying to visual calculus the size of this bird into my head. As large as my heart desires is also a valid answer, to be quite honest. Okay. So you know what? Let's try this. Maybe like a blockier head to look more like a snake. Suddenly getting up and abandoning the street to go to a zoo and get hands-on bird experience? This is an answer you must seek out for yourself. You won't find it in the comfort of your desk or wherever it is that you're watching this. I don't know, you might be on mobile. Maybe it's a little bit smaller than that. Okay. You know what? Let's make the. I want to, since Quetzalcoatl is the leader of them. I feel like Quetzalcoatl is like the between the, not to get into power scaling on stream, but I think between the serpent god of Mesoamerica and a clown and a prison worker, I think the serpent god has it. You know, there is the argument of what's a god to a clown, but I feel like Quetzalcoatl has it. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to make Quetzalcoatl a woman, and I'm going to base her off the female of the species. I don't know. It would be really, really funny to have the clown be the leader, the clown be in charge of a serpent god. I'm gonna be so for real. But I like the idea of the boss being like a short, angry woman. Maybe I don't know. I've been really into old ladies recently. Like the last time I drew an old lady, and I'm gonna make this one a little bit of an old lady too. Maybe not old, but like older. I think in general, I've just gotten a taste for drawing wrinkles. which is a strange thing to think, but it is the truth. That line felt like a Seinfeld bit. What's a god to a clown is kind of hard as fuck. I've been really into old ladies recently. Oh, okay, that's the one you meant. You know what? I don't think I've actually really watched episodes of Seinfeld, so I can't really say which one it is, but I do feel like that is something that one of those rapscallions on that show would say. The only one from Seinfeld, I know that Seinfeld is the main name of the main guy, but he doesn't even register as a person in my head, to be quite honest. Okay, I think I might be going about this all wrong. So instead of... You know what? This isn't a design document. I don't need to be A-posing these people. I'm just gonna... I think a better approach would be to be like, okay, we're using that one reference picture of the female resplendent Quetzal, right? How could we make the pose look bird-like? And I think the main idea that I have is to puff out the chest and bring the head back a little bit. I think I brought the head back a little bit too far back. There we go. And you know, you gotta have the arms folded behind the back. And I think the cool thing here is that I'm going to give her like a very frog-like mouth that I think you could interpret as... I just said frog-like, but pretend I didn't describe it as such. I'm going to give her a very wide mouth. And you can interpret that as either like a beak or as like a snake's jaw. Actually, let me take another look at that rattlesnake. What's its mouth situation like? Okay. So the bird mouth and the snake mouth have slightly different structures, which when I say it like that, it is a little bit of a no-duh situation. Yeah, that's a nice scowl. I like that. May just de-emphasizing the curve here. A nice strong nose. I don't know, what do... I was gonna be like, can we make bird-like eyes? But I think bird eyes just look... I don't know how to make bird-like eyes. I feel like they would just look a little bit like this. Which can actually be quite intimidating. If we play our cards right. And I do think having the eyes just be like the full iris, I do think that's going to be... That actually does provide a nice air of like mystical nature to it, to the design. Okay. What was it that they said was... It said that it was a conch shell cut at the cross section. Can we get eyes on what that looks like? Because I can visualize it a little bit, but I think it'd be best if we had an actual reference of what that looked like. Okay, yep. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I was picturing it. Interesting that it has that little divot, though. Like, can we get a closer look at that? What is that? What do you suppose that the little divot is for? Ooh, this one's really pretty. Wait, this one goes hard as hell, actually. Wait, I love these. Hang on, that looks so cool. Wait, who's this? Cross-section of a cylinder. Not exactly. That's not exactly what we're looking for, but I really like these two. I don't know if we're going to be able to incorporate that, though. Okay. Let me go back to the picture of the Gezal. You know what I'm picturing actually? Maybe like a feather boa for a head accessory for this one. Or just some kind of feathery looking cloak. I don't know, what the dignified old ladies of like 1920s mobster times wear as clothing? So hang on, 1920s grandma. Okay, wait, hang on. Check out this one. That but feathered downy? Maybe. But taking a look at this one, I don't know, maybe we can keep shopping around a little bit. Okay, this is just very clearly pictures of people whose grandmas were alive in the 1920s and they just took pictures of that. Back when they were in the 1920s. I.e. not yet grandmas. So that's a little bit tough. What the? Okay, well, we'll go. This is like the best one that I've seen, and I think it works for our purposes pretty well. So I think we're gonna go with something similar to that. Okay. So remove the more wing looking parts of it, and then maybe with a slightly darker brush. Or no, that's not showing up quite as well. Maybe with like a more orangish one. Yeah. Okay. And while I do kind of want to give her like zoot suit shoulders, I do think it would also be maybe against the idea for like the silhouette to look bird-like to have that. So maybe just the normal long frilly sleeves might actually be the answer for this one. And yeah, maybe it just tapers out into like a dress skirt. With very small feet, I think. We're gonna give Abuelita some tiny feet. Okay. And then, okay, that's the outer jacket. Then in here, in the middle, I think that's when we're gonna have the... I'm kind of torn here, because on the one hand, the spirally vaulted wind jewel that they were talking about in the Quetzalcoatl Wikipedia article is a conch shell cut at the cross section. And I feel like that's very clearly supposed to be like this kind of conch shell. Because that makes the most sense for how they were talking about like typhoons and tornadoes and such. This one also could make sense for that, but I feel like this one is probably the more accurate one. So it's a little bit of a tough decision because like, no. We go for historical accuracy. Or maybe there's a way we can kind of have a little bit of both. Is that possible? Or... Actually, you know what? My heart says that I should use the historically accurate one, but my heart also says that the one that looks like the diamond is also really cool. It's too cool to not use. I'm gonna quit being wishy-washy and just go for that one. Okay. Yeah. I think this feels like the right approach, and I think what we do is we attach it to like an It's gonna be a brooch. It's gonna be a really oversized brooch for a really oversized collar. And then that way we can have her craning her neck out like this. Although I don't know what kind of hairstyle to give her though. I think it's gonna have to be like a very to kind of maintain the bird-like theme. I think she's gonna have she's just gonna have her hair slicked back. Hi, Bunga Rider, how you doing? We made a breakthrough with this grandma, and we're making her very bird-like. I want to do something with the shoes, though. I feel like the shoes are an underutilized element. I did those two off the cuff, it feels like. God, she looks a little bit like Geese Howard. with like the hair pulled back like this. Which is appropriate for a mobster, I suppose. Okay, maybe we do something different with the... Crone and Crane are only one letter apart? That is extremely true, actually. Wait, actually... No, hang on. I've got it. Pants cut off a little bit too high. And that way it almost looks more like a bird's... talons? Question mark? That thing that birds have where like they have a little bit of poofiness on their legs, but not all the way down. Yeah, that feels more correct. Okay. Perfect. Now we just gotta make her shorter. And maybe just a little bit wider, too. Okay, let's increase the contrast. And decrease the brightness. Just so that it shows up a little bit better. Okay, I'm happy with that being the ringleader. Next up, we're gonna do the clown. Also known as funny business. I'm gonna give funny business a really big chin. And a cigar, too. I know clowns aren't supposed to smoke or drink on the job. I know that that's not, like, a thing that they do. Like, that's a thing that they're expressly forbidden from doing. I do think clowns are getting a neat resurgence in the past couple of years. I think clowns are regaining the public momentum that they lost so long ago. People are no longer afraid to be unironic clowns. And I don't mean that in like the disparaging sense. I mean that as in like people put on clown makeup on a character and everybody thinks that that's dope. I do think it's probably gonna be a buggy situation where it's just a humongous, inexplicably red nose, and nobody comments on it. Or no, wait, people comment on Buggy's nose all the time. Hang on. There we go, that's a good expression. Yeah, I do think funny business should look like a very dignified... It would have a very dignified expression if it weren't for, like, some of the facial features. Okay, let's shrink down the old lady one more time. But yeah, it is weird, right? I don't know why clowns were slandered to the extent that they were. Like, you know, literally everybody had, like, I think everybody grew up watching at least one episode of a cartoon being like, look, clowns aren't that scary. They're your friends. And I feel like we don't see that as often nowadays. Like either we're like, no, this is just a normal clown, or oh look, this character's afraid of clowns for whatever reason. To the 1-2 hit of John Gacy and Pennywise, that might very much be it. You know what? I hadn't considered the historical context, but the joint forces of Stephen King and one of the most highly documented serial killers in American history might have been a driving factor. And actually, you know what? I think Funny Business is also going to have his hair slicked back a little bit, but maybe just a touch. Like, I think it's still going to be a little bit all over the place. I'm gonna try and theme him after that one hobo clown. What was his name? Emmett Kelly. There he is. And I think the main thing for this guy is that he's gonna have like a very unfortunate looking 5 o'clock shadow to complement the clown nose. Maybe some eye bags too. Like he's not actually trying to dress like a clown, he just looks like one. And then in the 90s, clowns got kind of absorbed by what if Carnival but edgelord, so it took some time for them to just be goofy guys. You know what? I hadn't even thought about it, but that's true. Insane Clown, the All-Star 3-hit combo of Stephen King, John Wayne Gacy, and Insane Clown Posse would have been a lot for anyone to recover from. That's kind of like the once in a lifetime, once in a generation kind of PR hit that just sinks your brand indefinitely. Like I remember like watching Modern Family growing up. Like one of the characters was like a certified clown or something, and he took it very seriously, and it was like a running joke that he was an actual literal clown. Those jokes always seemed a little bit mean-spirited, not least because I think the the guy in question was like one of the two gay guys on the show. Okay. Do I want to make the... Okay, do I want to make the clown the big guy? I think I do. If I remember right, I think my father got paid to be a clown for a summer when he was young. Good for him, honestly. You know what? Seeing the kind of jobs that teenagers have the ability to do nowadays, being a clown for a summer feels like a very rewarding gig. Now, granted, I don't think you could have told a lot of your friends about it unless you really, really trusted them. But I feel like being a clown for a summer would be like very edifying. I feel like it's definitely going to do something to you, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily bad things. Sending children to clown school should be the new equivalent of sending children to military school. You know what? Because it's almost like a reverse psychology thing. You know, there was that whole thing, and I remember this from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that people sent their children to military schools to quote unquote straighten them out. I think that's the wrong approach. I think if you try to like snuff out somebody's silliness by repressing it, it's going to be a much tougher battle than if you would just show them what it takes to be like a genuine silly goose for a living. My dad was also our mall Santa growing up. That's the thing I couldn't talk about. You know what? That's a fascinating demographic to be in as a child, is children of people who are mall Santas. Because if you think about it, putting a father in the role of a mall Santa is actually like a pretty no-duh kind of proposition once you think about it. Because they're already used to handling children, or at least a child. But, you know, the children have to be like the secret keepers of it. Can I ask you what that like felt like growing up, knowing that your dad was like the mall Santa, but like not being able to tell the other kids? What was it difficult for you? Or do you have any funny experiences from it? Did you like experience a moment of poetic irony when your classmates were talking about what they were getting from Santa that season? Or was this all like after people? This was like once you were in the age category where it was no longer considered normal to believe in Santa. Ooh, wait, hang on. Hands hands in front of the body like this. That's how we do this. But yeah, I do think that sending your children over to, like I was saying, I think if you are trying to dissuade your child from a profession or behavior you think they'll regret, I think you need to expose them to like what people who do that shit professionally do, and get them in that situation, because either they will love it and they will like thank you later down the line for introducing them to it, or they'll realize that they're not cut out for that shit, and they'll experience for the first time what it feels like to have your dreams broken. My dad made up a whole lore that Santa recruited mall Santas to help out, and I was always the first to go to get the other kids okay with the idea. That's so awesome. Wait, that's so much better than having to hold it in for yourself. Your dad is a genius. Your dad might actually be a genius. Like that was a master stroke moment. Okay, so I'm gonna need to put this hand a little bit farther up, and then clench this fist. The weird thing is that this thing where like where you hold your, I'm gonna finish drawing it, then I'm gonna talk about it. Second, the genius, but it also gave them super easy access to what I wanted for Christmas. Badass. That's next level thinking. God, that's such a fun. That is really fun, actually. I'm glad that sounds like such a nice experience to have as a child growing up. I don't remember when I stopped believing in Santa, but I do know that I was definitely like dissuaded of the notion eventually, and I don't remember if I took it particularly well. I think I just took it normal style. I think like by that point I was like, oh, okay. But you know what? I might actually have to ask my parents what my reaction was to finding out that Santa wasn't real, because I don't remember it being like a huge thing. Or I think I did at least try staying up one time. I don't remember. I'll have to ask them to get the dirty details of my own childhood, of my own infancy. Okay, I'm going to need to shrink funny business down a little bit, just lengthwise. Because I am going to give him some huge fuck off shoes. Okay. I like drawing pleated pants for somebody who would probably never ever wear them. I like the idea that I do also want to float the idea that funny business genuinely doesn't try to look like a clown. It's just a bunch of different things in his life that just make him look like a clown. His facial features, the fact that he has really wide feet, so he needs like special accommodation shoes and whatnot. And he doesn't get offended if you think he is a clown, but he does get hurt if you think he's like making it up just to bullshit you, just to like say, oh no, I'm definitely not a clown. Like, I do think it hurts his feelings if you like try to be like, what, that's bullshit. You're definitely just dressed like a clown. He's like, no, I'm not. Don't say that, it's mean. Okay. And then just a little... We gotta have the flower on the lapel. There's no way we're missing that. Okay. And we're gonna just put him a little bit to the left here. And also maybe shrink that right foot a little bit. The bulb on that shoe is ginormous. Okay. Actually, you know what? I do need to make Funny Business a little taller. I think if I put him right over his name like that, just where he's at the ground, and just stretch him upward a little bit, I think it'll be perfect. Okay, and finally we have the prison worker. Who I think I'm going to have a lot of fun drawing. Because I think I'm just going to give him like the little prisoner's hat, just like the striped one. And probably just like, hang on. And, you know, I'm gonna give him some dimples. I'm gonna go ahead and give him some dimples. He's just happy to be here working with his friends again. I think he is gonna end up a little bit shaggy coated, unfortunately. I don't think there's anything we can do for that. And I'm just gonna give him... Hang on. Can I look up 1920s prisoner suit? Or is that gonna be like too late? Oh no, okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, this is pretty much what I was expecting. Actually, why didn't they come up with where did they come up with the striped uniform thing? Hang on. During the Victorian era, where prison sentences of prolonged durance were implemented in the judicial system of several countries, actual garments were conceived to be worn specifically by prison inmates, which developed to the various types of prison uniforms presently in use. Okay, that's World War II. We're gonna skip right on over that. During the Second World War, German and Italian prisoners of war who were engaged in agricultural work were issued with a chocolate brown version of battle dress. Okay. Throughout most of the 20th century, attitudes were different towards philosophies of rehabilitation. Fair treatment of prisoners and a growing number of non-violent working-class offenders prompted such a change in attitudes, and clothing and conditions changed to serve the concept of rehabilitation rather than punishment. As a result, work clothes were introduced. perhaps because of the concept of honest labor helping to turn an inmate into an honest citizen. Blue jeans and light blue denim on chambray work shirts became the norm, a tradition still followed in some state prison systems today. Okay. Orange jumpsuits. Hot pink uniforms were introduced in some facilities. This color of clothing makes inmates very visible, and wearing hot pink clothes is meant to be disincentivizing, especially for male inmates who don't like the color. That's not cool. Okay. That was very depressing. So... Okay, here's what let's do. I'm going to make it almost look like a nightgown. Yeah, very baggy, I think. And I think he's also going to have a pickaxe. Okay. You know what? I'd like to have a proper reason to use a pickaxe at some point. I feel like they'd be very satisfying tool to use. There was a shade of pink that studies showed would calm me down, so some persons decided to paint everything in that shade, but it being the only color actually agitated them. Yep. God, it's really fucked up that they do use prisons for a lot of the psychological experiments. I don't know, maybe somebody saw the Stanford prison experiment thing and got the wrong idea, thinking that it was like an actual prison instead of like a simulated one. That's so messed up, though. I don't know, the dehumanization of prisoners in the current system just feels very... It's very dissatisfactory for the intended purposes of rehabilitation, or really for as treatment of another human being in general. It's just very dehumanizing. God, can you imagine though? That shit would piss me off too. Imagine you woke up one morning and everything was just pink, like you were living in frickin' children's playhouse. It would be very sinister. Okay. I think I'm gonna make his head smaller and his neck longer. I think that would be produce a very funny effect. Yeah, maybe just like a little bit shorter too, so that he's kind of in between between funny business and Quetzal. Okay, and then the other foot's gonna come down here. Okay, and then yeah, the big old ball and chain back here. This is satisfactory for prison worker, but I don't think it paints like a very mobster-y picture, is the thing. I don't know. I think we need to rework this one just a little bit. I think we have the time for that. I also resent the idea of showing collarbone for this. I mean, mobsters did go to prison. Yeah, the bad ones. Okay, when I say bad, I don't mean as if they were like bad people, because the mobsters were, pretty broadly speaking, one and all bad people. I mean the ones who were bad at being mobsters. The bad ones went to prison. And also some of the ones who were good at it still went to prison because they fucked up. They were pretty bad at other things. Everybody talks about like, oh, did you know that Al Capone was busted for not doing his taxes properly? And it's like, it's so funny. Like, bro, didn't you have people for that? You insisted on doing everything yourself? This was before the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, bro. You couldn't find one unscrupulous accountant. I guess it would have been hard to find somebody you trusted to do your taxes as a mobster in those days. Actually, I've got an idea. Hang on, I've got an idea. Maybe instead of being another suit, maybe this guy's got like an almost like dock worker's uniform. Capone was also suffering from syphilis brain, probably not thinking everything out. Okay, that is fair, but at the same time, if you were going through syphilis brain, wouldn't you want somebody else to do your taxes even more? Or I guess the paranoia would have probably won out in that particular in that particular kind of exchange. Okay, maybe just a little. This guy's gonna have like a mosh cap look going on. That is interesting, though. I never knew that he was afflicted by syphilis when he went to prison. That's a novel factoid to me. Okay, that's gonna go like this. I'm trying to think of how to like keep this prison looking ish, but also not necessarily looking too prison like. I do think the stripes are a must have. Yeah, he had it most of his adult life and passed it on to his kid. Post prison, he had regressed to like a toddler. Jeez, that's rough. I had no idea about that. I'll have to look into that. That sounds like a really interesting kind of wrinkle to the whole story of that, because I don't know if that's like a widely known thing, because I feel like most people you know, the way that most people talk about it, it's like, he slipped up that one time with his taxes. And I think that's like the full extent of what most people know. That's the full extent of what I knew, at least. So it sounds like there was a lot more to the guy than, you know, do a crime, eat at the pasta, and go to prison. I'll have to look into that. Hmm. There's a great video making the soup that he served at his soup kitchens. That's so cool. That's really funny, actually. You know what? I have been trying to mix up my own food menu a little bit. Maybe Al Capone soup. Maybe Mobster soup kitchen soup might be what I need to spice up my diet. There we go. Yeah. I think this is the right move. God, Tasting History is a channel. Dude does a lot of great history and food. He made ancient Roman fish sauce. I've seen that guy. Was his name like Max Miller or something? I've seen some of his videos. They're really fun. I saw one recently that was about like what like a fancy ration might be for a like pretty higher up in the Roman Legion. And I saw another one where he made like ninja pills that they used to take for food and for sitting out in long periods of time on a stakeout. It's really good. I do like the idea that this guy here was in prison for so long that maybe the the like ball and chain became almost like a safety blanket for him, and now he freaks out if he doesn't have it on. Okay. Here's what let's do. Funny Business and the prison guy, whose name I'm still trying to figure out, are fine. I do need to clean up the... I need to clean up the Quetzal's whole thing. So here's what let's do. We're gonna... Yeah, I think we're just gonna go ahead and make sure that everything is in order in orange here. There's a metaphor for the recidivism of prisoners. So true, actually. Wait, that would work as a sick metaphor for recidivism, as you said. Yeah. Like now that even though he's gotten out of prison, he can't feel at home unless he feels like he's in prison. So he's bound to go back to prison. That's really interesting as as like a character trait, as like an idea of, as like a motif behind somebody's writing. Okay. I'm also gonna give Kesal a cleft chin because I think it'll look cool. Also, I want to give her like slightly different eyes. May with a little bit of more eye bag, not like tired eye bag, but just old people eye bag. And maybe you can see just the slightest bit of white of her eyes. Yeah, I think that looks very scary. I also realize now that I've forgotten to give her eyebrows. I think nice bushy eyebrows would fit her well. I think some earrings would also look nice. Okay. And here's what let's do. We're going to use binarization here. And then we're going to convert brightness to opacity. And that leaves behind just the... Whoops. just like the clean orange lines. Okay. I'm kind of piecing together these people's backstories now as well, though, because I feel like I feel like the whole thing is like the inciting incident is that the prison worker managed to break himself out of prison, even though these two were trying to help him out of there, or they were just hoping, and they were like kind of lost without him being around because they, found family. You have. You kind of learn to rely on each other like that's, and it's kind of weird when one of you isn't there. And now that he's back, they can go back on doing wacky hijinks and family friendly crime. I'm thinking of this very much as like the setup to a cartoon. One, it very much would not be. I don't know. Are we ready to have a mobster parody cartoon with themes of prison recidivism and I don't know, actually. I guess it only makes sense to make Keza like someone of Nahua descent. Unless Nahuatl is a language and not the people, but I'm pretty sure Nahuatl is... Is Nahuatl... Nahuatl is also the people, right? It's both a language and the... Okay, Nahuatl is a language. Nahua are one of the indigenous people of Mexico. Okay. Yeah, I feel like it makes sense to make Quetzal the Nahua of the Nahua people. So I guess there would also be some things about immigration thrown in there too. Which is very exciting for the times that we live in. Okay. I think if we copy and paste this and then merge those two together, I think we can just go directly into coloring for most of these guys. Also, I have to make sure that they're all... You know what? Let's put them on different layers and we'll also... And then we can just make sure that they're all standing at the same height. Or on the same level. If you just want to keep adding themes, the clown guy is not seen as a serious human being. People only see the clown, the criminal. Interesting. Oops. Forgot to actually unglue him from the same layer. Actually, that could be an interesting theme as well. Hang on. Okay, bring all of these guys up a little bit. Also, I need to adjust the shoes on funny business. Yeah, maybe the way that appearances are overemphasized, or there's definitely some. It does feel like there is some significance that could be put to being a clown. Or at least looking like a clown. Also, I think this... Okay, I think the left leg needs to be closer to the right leg for all of this to work. Okay. I think I know what to do here. It is also the fact that I did make him look like the hobo clown, so maybe there is something to that as well. And it can also discuss the topic of like tramps and, you know, people who are displaced for any number of reasons. If I recall correctly, there is a very famous picture of the famous hobo clown, because I think at one point the circus that he worked at got accidentally caught on fire, and there's a famous picture of him like helping out with the water bucket towards the fire. Hang on. Hang on, where is... Hartford Circus Fire. Here we go. Although Panto's Paradise was Willie's big number in 1944, his first appearance occurred earlier in the program when the Walendas were performing on the high wire. During the act, Willie would stand under their rigging, holding a small handkerchief as if to catch them should they fall. The gag had been getting laughs all season, and on July 6th, while the circus was in Hartford, Connecticut, there was no reason to believe anything would be different. As I was putting the finishing touches on my face, I could hear the band playing the waltz music that was my cue to amble up to the center ring. At that instant, someone ran past the dressing tent yelling, "Fire!" I was trying to run in my big flapping shoes and suddenly realized I was carrying a bucket of wash water I had grabbed when I left the dressing tent. Kelly said that when he saw the big top burning, he knew he had to help the panicked crowd exit the tent. It was then that he spotted flames burning one of the near large generator wagons. As he tried to douse the small fire with his bucket of water, he nearly became a casualty himself. One of the Caterpillar tractors came rumbling along to get that wagon, to hook on and pull it away from the crowd, he recalled. It was almost on top of me before I realized what was happening, and as it swung around, it did not miss running over me by more than an inch. Kelly's actions that day were immortalized by audience member Ralph Emerson, who took a photograph of Kelly in his full clown makeup and costume, carrying a single bucket of water. The photograph was published in Life on July 17, 1944. I'm going to see if I can find that picture because it sounds like a very iconic one. Okay, Emmett Kelly water bucket. Oh yeah, here he comes. Yeah, and you can see, and I think you can see some of the smoke from the fire in the background as well. It's a very evocative image. Hobos were the seasonal labor of their time, much like how we have immigrant workers in agriculture. That is true. I think that's definitely another angle that we can work with. Okay, and then that's going to come up like this. Honestly, looking at it and how the expression came out in the finished product, I'm really liking it. I do think the hat brim needs to be slightly wider over on this side. Okay. It is a really good bit to pretend you're going to catch somebody falling with a handkerchief, though. I can see that why that one got plenty of laughs. That's an old head kind of gag. You don't see a lot of that these days. I think it's just a little bit too cartoony to really play well with the current kind of atmosphere. But I think it's been long enough that I think it could become novel again. I think the great thing about clowns and kind of the humor that they represent is that it's not supposed to be taken seriously. Like, I think if you had like a normal actor in a comedy thing doing the handkerchief bit, like where they were going to catch a falling person with a handkerchief, I think it wouldn't, like, the audience would just register the character as ridiculously dim-witted. and it wouldn't be quite as funny as as if it was somebody who was like doing it for the bit. Like, if you have the person doing the joke very obviously be in on the joke, I think it can create a very unique and very conductive dynamic to further comedy. That's not to say it's superior in specific ways, but I think it does open up a few avenues that are otherwise closed. Also, I do think I need to make her head slightly narrower, looking at it again. Like, I wanted to go wide, but I might have gone too wide. Okay. Okay, these two look like they're standing at the same height, so why does Quetzal not look maybe just a little bit higher? Okay, good. Alright, nice. We can combine these layers together, and then we can start the coloring process. And we can also decide on their names shortly thereafter. Okay. Gotta turn off the orange filter on my computer, and we can get it started on this in earnest. Okay. Maybe almost like a sort of red, blue, and green setup. I think that might be good for their specific going-ons. Okay, so maybe red, green. And we can work on this too later on in case, you know, I change my mind. Oh yeah. One of the things that I was really interested in back in high school was the idea of like both war chalking and hobo signs, just as methods of signifying stuff to other people who are in the know. It's a very it's not a very permanent solution, but it is a very practical one. When you expected other people to come by and you needed to, it was kind of almost like a sort of hospitality to them to explain what you'd found in your travels. I especially liked war chalking just because it felt very, I don't know how to put it. There was like a phase in computer stuff, I think, particularly the internet, where it felt very much more physical than merely like this sort of ethereal thing that we have now. Like we still have routers, right? And everything on the internet still requires like a physical place, a physical thing counterpart to function. But I think most people don't really see that side of the equation nowadays. I know I haven't, for example. I grew up just as they were starting to put the cloud into everything, for example. So I don't really use the cloud much myself, but I do use, a lot of what I use does function only with a cloud. It functions exclusively that way. So having that kind of system back in the day where you could write out, hey, this person has a free an unsecured Wi-Fi network that you can use for computer activities just on a wall somewhere is just really fascinating to me. Like nowadays most people just have that on lock, but back then I guess it wasn't really a necessity, not only because, you know, it wasn't possible or wasn't really feasible to do like the long distance cross country hacking bullshit that they can nowadays, but also just because most people didn't have a computer, period. And that's also like kind of what made it secure. It's kind of like how they didn't invent seatbelts or traffic safety for like a long time after cars were on the market, just because like it was assumed that if you bought and owned a car, you knew how to use it, which I think is really funny. I don't think we should go back to that system, but I think we might just end up in that situation anyway. Okay. Yes, very good. This is my problem with striped clothing, is that I always end up making the stripes not not the same on both sides. Like the number of stripes is always, I'm very bad at keeping it consistent unless I know specifically, okay, it's this number of stripes on this side. Or on both sides, rather. Hmm. Okay, yeah, this will work. And I think we can almost like dye her hair like a grayish green. Oh, she looks a lot like the Joker now. Well, you know what? A little old lady deserves to be the Joker too. She should be allowed. But maybe just trying to make it more silverish gray than like desaturated green. Yeah, that's kind of the more patina color. Yeah, I can live with that. Hmm. Maybe some cockies? Yeah, no, she needs a slightly different hair color. Or maybe I can adjust the tone of her skin a little bit to match a little bit better with it. Hang on. Let's try that first. Because I do think she's looking a little... Oh. Yeah, hang on. She was looking a little bit ashy just now, but I think that... Yeah, now she looks much more vibrant. Actually, did the Quetzals even have yellow toes? Oh shoot, have I not been on the... Have I not been showing the... Oh shoot. I think I've been away from the canvas for quite a while, haven't I? I apologize for that. Okay. Let me see these things. Wait, what the Oh my god. Wait, hang on. Back to the web browser real quick. This one's eating a ripe avocado. That's not a whole avocado, but that's still like that's still an insane. I really like this picture. Okay, hang on. We gotta look at those toes. Okay, so kind of like a darkish color. All right, that makes my life a little bit easier then. Okay. And then just darker still for the base of the shoe. Fabulous. Actually, I'm gonna make this almost like a pure white kind of pink. And I think I'm gonna make her shirt like maybe red to be like the bird's underbelly. Maybe a little bit more bold than that. She's kind of stepping on Funny Business's toes this way, but I think that's fine. Okay. That being said, let's try something different with this hair color. Ooh, yeah, like maybe a strong, healthy. Yeah, I think just keeping it as a kind of dark, as like black hair like this. I think that gives her much more of like a dignified presence than it being like washed out at all. I don't know. Maybe she died or she dies it or something. I was picturing her at the age where she would like start going gray, but you know what? Maybe she's younger than we thought. That makes sense too, because grannies really shouldn't be getting up to all this gang business. Unless I guess unless they're pushed. Which, you know, in which case Grandma's gotta do what Grandma's gotta do. Okay. I do think I want to wash out her colors a little bit more, though. I feel like currently they're too vibrant. That looks pretty good. Also, I do want to redo her eyes a little bit, because before I wanted to make her unsettling, but I think now I want her to have, like, a more focused look. May eyes more like an owl than, like, just filling the entire sclera. Whoops. Let's try that again. Yeah, I think that looks much better. Nah. Let's leave those as sclera. Okay, for funny business, I think we're also going to give him just darker hair. A lot of warm tones, I think. So maybe like almost like a sort of yellowish shirt for him. Okay. Then... Okay, what color should the pants be? Maybe a darker color? Oh yeah, I'm liking that. Maybe a yellow tie too? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yup. Okay. Maybe that had the same color that's the pants? Yes, alright. I'm liking that. I think the hair should be a little bit more distinguished, though. I wonder what color I could make it to do that. I mean, I could just make it slightly darker. Yeah, and maybe unlike Kesal, maybe Funny Business is just very naturally pale. Downright vampiric. Okay, yeah. And then just a slight... Gonna like make like a slightly... Is that good? For the facial hair? I think so. Maybe like a bluer tint. Or like almost like purple. Yeah. And you know, maybe some eye bags for him. Just again to look clownish. And then a nice red splotch here. Oh yes. I think we're on to something. Or maybe like a white flower and a yellow button. Yep, that seems good. Okay, and then for the shoes. Ooh, this one's a toughie. Because if we go for the same brownish color that we used for the hat and the pants, they're gonna blend too much into the pants. So maybe a different kind of brown color. Maybe more like a tan. The lighter strips on the bottom of the shoes don't really work. I'm gonna give him the darker brown ones. That's good. Also, I'm going to redo the nose. I'm going to add a little bit more redness to it. Or maybe just make it universally... Yeah, that's good. Okay, time to finish up the prisoner guy. Oh, I guess I should probably make the bottom of these also dark blue, huh? Okay, and maybe a very light blue for the jeans. Just jet black for the hair. I think this guy's going to be a little bit on the paler side. Not quite as pale as Funny Business. I really got to figure out the names for the rest of these. Okay, very nice. And then a dark gray or darkish blue for the cuff on the leg. Okay. What kind of wood color should we go for this? I think just like a lighter hickory, I guess. I think this is the color of hickory. I might be mistaken. I kind of want to rework Nahwal's, not Nahwal, Quetzal's color scheme. Because I feel like these two I'm liking, but hers is a little bit, it feels disconnected. The green isn't really speaking to me. So I feel like there's something about it that I need to transform. Or maybe, hang on. I've got an idea. Maybe it's not maybe it's not the green, but everything besides the green. So let's leave the top of her head alone. And that's fine. I like how her head turned out. And we also need to deselect the rest of this. Perfect. Okay, that's definitely not the right direction to move things in. Okay, this is interesting. Okay. I think I'm getting closer. Okay. And maybe just the green, just a little bit different. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm also going to go back and make the light blue here just closer to pure white. There we go. Might also mess around with the color on the metal of the pick here, just to make it a little bit lighter. Yeah, that looks good. I think at some point I'd like to rework Quetzal's face, but I think this is pretty good for a day's work. Yeah, I think this is a move. I think this is going to be the way forward. Yeah, okay. Oh, wait, I forgot to color in the cigar on Funny Business. Ooh, wait, I can make it the same color as the shoe. Just to reuse that particular element of the color scheme. Hell yeah. Okay. Okay, so I think Funny Business, I think Freebird for the one that we've been calling Quetzal. And I don't know what we're going to call the prison guy. Actually, you know what? We should call the prisoner guy Jailbird. And then we should change Freebird's name. What should we... Maybe something like down? As in like the bird's feathers? I don't know. I think we'll just call her down for the time being. Or actually, you know what? Mrs. Down. Or Mrs. Downey. I think that one has more of a mobster vibe, especially adding the Mrs. to it. Also, I think I figured out what I want her to have. I think I'm going to give her, like, some bits of dyed hair. Wait, now she looks like that one lady from... that one trainer rival from Pokemon. Okay, never mind. Idea canceled. I do need to add another wrinkle here just to make it symmetrical. May I just need to make her head narrower again? Maybe that'll solve everything. No, that just looks strange and disproportionate. I think then maybe... hang on. Because if I merge these two... and I can just kinda use the liquefy tool to push this inward. Okay. Alright, 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 alright. This might be the ticket. Alright, here, let's try this. No, 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 no. That's too much. I think this is pretty good, honestly. I think this works. All right, I think that's going to be it for today. Is V live yet? No, she is not. Okay, everybody go watch V play Danganronpa later. I know I will be. I'll be watching that. All right, in the meantime, thank you all very much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I love the conversation we've had today. And take care of yourselves. Enjoy. Have a good weekend. See you later. Bye.